So, is there over-policing in the black community? Coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic and Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So, black people have come up with many ways to deflect away from personal responsibility. And far more often than not, these excuses have come basically are surrounded by disparities or end result thinking. And of course, I always say that disparity doesn't mean depravity. Just because there's a disparity somewhere in society doesn't mean that it was some depraved white people that created this, that said disparity. Sometimes disparities exist for legitimate reasons, right? Now, the over-policing of blacks is one of said excuses that black people often use to deflect away from personal responsibility. Now, they complain that there's more policing in the black community, and this over-policing in the black community explain the higher crime rates and the mass arrests that we see happening among blacks. Again, this is just more end result thinking. Well, if we look at the data shows that police on average will have 24% more arrests in areas that where black people generally are twice the general population or basically black communities. And it probably gets higher as the percentage of blacks gets higher. But this is just a result of committing mass crime, though. I mean, if black folks are committing crime at a higher rate, then wouldn't there be more arrests? And if you're committing mass crime, that's going to lead to mass arrest. And if you have a mass arrest, you will have basically a mass amount of blacks having court appearances for crimes. And ultimately, it's going to lead to mass incarceration. So they cry about always crying about everything but the mass crime that leads to these things. Anyway, but where is the evidence that black people there's more police in the black community? I hear black people say this all the time. Never seen any evidence. Nobody provided any evidence of this, that there are more police in the black community. And if I think it's more matter. If we want to be honest, it'll be more matter that police in the black community is just busier dealing with the higher crime rates. But if there were more police in the black community, well, it would make sense because, that's where the crime is. I mean, wouldn't you allocate resources to where those resources are more needed? I mean, if there's a part of town that has a lower elevation, and as a result, this area, this part of town is more prone for flooding, then wouldn't you allocate more flood assets to that town? It makes sense. I mean, the criminal Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is. Anyway, regardless though, there's absolutely no evidence to show no over-policing of blacks in the black community. This is just made up nonsense by blacks, again, based off of them seeing a disparity somewhere, and they try to always come up with ways to deflect away from any personal responsibility. There is absolutely zero evidence that basically there's over-policing in the black community. And now with that being said though, as I always say, if you're not committing crime, it doesn't matter how many police in your community. It doesn't matter if there's 1,000 police in your community or 1,000,000. If you're not committing crimes, it doesn't matter. So stop committing crimes. But black folks love to focus on, they don't like to focus on the crime being committed. They love to focus on cry about the residual effects of the crime and try to say it's racism. Anyway, y'all, that's my 2 cents on this. And as always, until next time.